This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Lando Norris is 2025 Formula 1 World Champion. This marathon of a season is finally over and we have our winner. He's had his ups, he's had his downs, but 2 points were enough in the end to make the difference to see Lando finish ahead of Max Verstappen to win his first world title since 8 years ago, his F3 European Championship. So what do I make of it? Is he a deserving world champion? And as Zach Brown put it, are we now entering the Lando Norris era? My name's Tomo, let's talk about it. No driver has a perfect season, and it is very, very fair to say in the first half of the year, Lando was not on his job. I put in P5 in my driver rankings in my mid-season report, and I stand by that. We had 30 qualifying sessions over the entire season, including sprint qualifying, and if you look at the first 15 in isolation, he averaged 0.133 behind Oscar Piastri, closer to a 10th and a half than a 10th. And the thing is, most of that gap wasn't because he was slow, because Lando's never been slow over a lap. It was unforced errors, it was mistakes creeping in and getting in the way. China quali, false start and mugged by George in Bahrain. Saudi quali was poor and unable to pass Lewis in the race. Canada quali was bad, great recovery drive, but then drove into the back of Oscar. Now, of course, the first half of the season did absolutely have its moments. Australia, superb. Austria, superb. Monaco was clutch. Those were the examples that proved the point that he could do it. He just needed to do it more frequently, more reliably. You take a look at the middle third of the season and the luck was certainly up and down. He inherited Oscar Piastri's P1 in Silverstone after the Australian copped himself a penalty, made a one-stop work in Hungary, which was part luck by just going for it and being able to have the freedom to go against the grain, but also Lando executed that one stop. Azerbaijan was a bad day in the office for both McLarens, but especially Oscar. Lando not so much, but P7 still wasn't anywhere near where it should have been. And of course Zandvoort, as much as he wasn't winning that race, he was P2 and lost out on 18 points with that DNF. But then came the final 7 rounds, the time where you really needed to step up, and that is absolutely what Lando did. He was aggressive with his teammate in Singapore, which may have been against papaya rules, but was certainly within racing rules. Austin, he was just straight up quicker than Oscar, and as much as Max maximised that weekend himself, Lando also did his part. Mexico and Sao Paulo need no explanation. Absolutely prime Norris those weekends. He did everything he needed to do. In Vegas, he was running P2 ahead of Oscar in P4 before that double disqualification. Qatar, you'd say, was the one blip, and of course that did rob Oscar of a victory, but also it hurt Lando's finishing position as well. It shouldn't have been as bad as P4. And then of course in Abu Dhabi, did he lose position on the first lap? Sure, but he could afford to. He played to the margins. He knew what he needed to do to get the championship over the line, and he executed. Up and down, flawed, fantastic, but bloody good fun. And you know what the word I keep coming back to? Real. This one was never going to come easy with Verstappen and Piastri nipping at his heels, but what matters at the end of the day is that driver ranking. Where do you stand relative to your compatriots? And he's 2 points ahead of Max. And it speaks volumes as well, just how positively this was received by his fellow drivers. But before we talk about them, let's have a little talk about today's video sponsor, Squarespace, shall we? Been supporting the channel for many a year, the all-in-one website building platform you need to use if you want to build your very own beautiful online home, be that a portfolio, be that an online store, be that a blog, with their award-winning Blueprint AI software to boot as well. It is honestly an absolute breeze. Any of you can do it. Just give it a go. It's free to try as well. No risk. It's only when you want to publish your finished website live to the world that you have to pay anything. Thousands of beautiful drag and drop templates are at your fingertips. If you do want to give it a go, head to squarespace.com/TommoF1 to get 10% off of your very first website or domain. As fans, we are all entitled to our own opinions on the sport, and the information that we get comes through media, the teams, the drivers, etc, etc. But no one's going to have a true understanding of what these drivers are actually capable of, especially on track, quite like the other drivers. Like, a lot of these have raced against each other since they were kids, for crying out loud. They understand the nuances of one another's driving better than any of us could. And you know what? I think Carlos Sainz summed up things pretty perfectly. When I worked with him at McLaren, I saw the speed of someone who could be a multiple-time world champion purely down to speed. I think along the way he's honed his skills and now he's a world champion. More than anything, I'm happy for him as a person. He's a driver that doesn't follow the typical stereotype of a world champion. He's always stayed very true to himself, very honest, very open about his own struggles. I think he must have suffered a bit this year with all the social media pressure, journalism pressure, criticising him when he was struggling in the first half. Never easy to be a world champion with Max breathing down your neck. The beginning of this McLaren resurgence, I think you can put it down to 2019, can't you? With Norris and Sainz, two new drivers at that team in that year. They were superb teammates, I thought. Proper Lando vibes will be missed. And maybe one day they'll be in a team together. Honestly, I think if you're looking at excellent driver pairings across the grid, I think Sainz and Norris complement one another within their skill sets, keeping it on and off track. That could definitely be something in the future. And he couldn't speak more highly of his mate. Charles Leclerc too. Very happy for Lando. He's been faultless in the last part of the season. He's been driving incredibly well. I'm sure the first World Championship feels very special. Very happy for him. It's deserved. And it's got to sting a bit for Charles because, you know, he's 2 years older than Lando. I think he is a more complete driver than Lando, and he absolutely deserves a shot at a World Championship. And he's not getting it because he's banked on Ferrari, which is kind of sad. Then there's George Russell. Him and Lando, of course, go way back. Honestly, I am happy for him. We were rivals back in F2 and we sort of came through the ranks together. I think a few years ago, maybe when I was younger and not as, maybe mature is not the right word, but envy your fellow countrymen getting a championship before you. But I think you recognise how much hard work it takes to sustain this level. You never know when your chance is going to come, especially the second half of the year. It's been pretty extraordinary. So yeah, well done to him. And George's time, I think, will come as well. He is absolutely in that calibre of driver who, you give him the machinery over the course of the year, he can and I think will fight for a world championship. Also, he's got Kimi Antonelli alongside him, who has very high peaks but still needs to work on his consistency, whereas George is already there. George has to be a favourite, I think, for next year. Maybe his time is going to come sooner rather than later, and he was very, very complimentary towards Lando. There's no prerequisite, is there, for drivers to gush over a fellow driver, but absolutely, the vibes were immaculate yesterday. Even from Max, who is the guy who lost out on this championship by just 2 points in the end. He was very magnanimous and gracious in defeat. He's had a very, very good season. It's been a tough battle between him and Oscar, and at one point I got into the fight. Winning your first is always super emotional. It's very special because everybody in the grid is always dreaming about that. So I hope he really enjoys it tonight with his family and, of course, the team. Those with the real wheel knowledge to know whether this is a well-earned, well-deserved championship believe that it is. And whether you're a Lando fan or not, you should absolutely heed the statements of these drivers who are way more educated than we are and we are ever going to be. His speed has never been in doubt. I don't think anyone would genuinely bring that into question, but his execution, absolutely. Decision making at times has not been good enough. I think his racecraft still needs some work. But in this formula as it is, even though he didn't get any more poles than Max, who got the most with 8 this year, his consistency of being up there over a lap and putting himself within contention was enough to get it done. And if you ask me, getting this championship over the line could well result in us seeing the best yet to come from Lando. We can all argue until we go blue in the face about where he ranks relative to the grids and where he ranks relative to the greatest of this generation, blah, blah, blah. But he'll forever have that number 1 next to his name. At least he might win more, you never know. And Max's unbelievable turnaround and Oscar's very, very strong season will be remembered today, will be remembered tomorrow. But in 10, 20, 30 years, they will be remembered less, but what will always be remembered is that 1 next to Lando's name. And I hope for his sake that that gives him that little bit of confidence that he clearly does need. He's a driver who I do think is sensitive to the realities of F1 and the media and all of that. Nico Rosberg's talked about this. Lando's talked about this himself. You know, he's had serious self-doubt at times and been very open, and I think that is very admirable. You know, Sebastian Vettel has been incredibly complimentary of how Lando Norris has done it his way. That's what Carlos Sainz referenced in his statement, right? He's heart on sleeve, he's out there, he's honest, he's flawed. You know, Lando as well noted that, yeah, there's things that he's said in the past that he regrets and wish he could take back and been a bit reckless and careless. And for me, that just kind of leans into the humanity of him, because it's so easy, especially where you're an F1 driver and every single word you say is going to be written down and regurgitated online and by people like me and disassembled and theorized, right? You're going to say some stuff that you regret and you don't really mean and you don't communicate it properly. That's going to happen. And it's that candid nature that makes him so popular, but also makes him a very easy target. And I think, you know, you can criticize Lando's ability and performances all you like, but he does get disproportionately absolutely ragged on, which is it's sad, really. Like, it doesn't need to be that way. And I like to think that being able to do what I do and speak about the sport in a way that I think I'm pretty respectful towards the drivers. I try my best. I don't always get it right, but we don't all need to be reactionary, screaming, shouting, dragging people, tearing stuff down for the sake of clout and views and clicks on social media, you know. And again, I hope for Lando getting this championship over the line will release a level of belief and confidence that will help him improve even more going into next year, you know. He's got the #1 on his car. He's got it done. And even though it's by 2 points, that does not matter. If he had lost out on this championship, I think that would have been an absolute heartbreak for him. I think that would have been tough to recover from, to be honest, to come that close. But that's not the reality. He's got it done. He's got it won. He's still only 26 years of age. Yes, again, he has things to work on. I think his racecraft needs effort. I think too many times he has been shown up this season, you know, struggling with George wheel-to-wheel in Bahrain, struggling with Lewis wheel-to-wheel in Saudi Arabia. But this should give all the self-belief and motivation he needs to continue iterating and improving himself, because his peaks, he can hang with anyone in F1. I absolutely believe that at his peaks. If he can get to that level more reliably, there's no reason why he can't go down as one of the best drivers of this generation. Absolutely. He is not there right now, but he could be. And when we think ahead to 2026, of course, McLaren should have a very strong package next year. The consensus is that Mercedes are going to have the engine, so then that leaves Mercedes, McLaren, Williams and Alpine. Williams and Alpine are still on their journey and probably not there quite yet. Mercedes and McLaren, it does feel like if you're going to put money on it, it's going to be one of them two. You know, Peter Pedromu, Rob Marshall, they have developed a fantastic McLaren car this season. Those learnings can only help towards next year, and they have two top tier drivers who have been there for a good number of years now. Consistent feedback, all of that good stuff should put the car into a good place for next year. I do wonder, you know, Oscar and Lando do have different driving styles. Who's going to get most out of it, basically? Which direction are they going to aim for? I imagine McLaren are just going to try and develop the car to be as quick as they can. And then if it falls into Lando's style or Oscar's style, it will be what it will be. They obviously had the suspension difference between Lando and Oscar for feel this year, but I don't think they can afford for that to be the case in 26 onwards. And also, as we talk about Lando, I think we also need to talk about Oscar, because Lando's been out there with his praise for his teammate, which of course is very easy to do once you've won the championship, but I do genuinely think that Oscar coming in has brought out the best side of Lando today. Oscar's done an incredible job. I'm glad I've had Oscar over the last 3 years. Even though he's a lot newer to it than me, I've learned a lot from him. He's showed me up many times and I've managed to learn a lot from him. I wouldn't be the driver I am today without that. And look, I guess that argument goes one or two ways. You know, will Oscar in his 4th season, learning from this year where he's come so close but fallen short, but you learn most in life from the failures, the things that don't work out as planned, will he step up again, and will we be able to pack Lando in 26? Perhaps. But will an even more competitive Oscar bring out an even more competitive Lando Norris? Because in all reality, there's a good chance it won't just be them two fighting for a world title. It could be George Russell, it could be Charles Leclerc, it could be Max Verstappen, and they have to beat those guys as well, who I do consider those three, Max, Charles, George, over Lando right now. And if Lando's going to get to their level and exceed their level, a super competitive teammate should in theory help him to do so. Look, once again, massive congratulations to Lando Norris. He's got it done. I reckon he's got a sore head this morning after celebrating last night, and good for you, son. I hope he enjoys his first round of golf post-race as well, because you know he's loving the golf at the minute, and I love golf as well. I'm deeply obsessed. That's a wrap. Keep your eyes peeled for my driver rankings, which won't be remotely controversial, because they never are, because you never call me out for my dodgy opinions. Thank you all for taking the time. My name's Tomo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.